Last time we dove deep into GCDM, those good clinical data management practice guidelines.
Right.
It's really fascinating how they ensure that all of the data from clinical trials is really top-notch, you know,
Yeah.
setting the gold standard for the entire field.
Yeah.
Almost like the Bible of clinical data management.
Definitely, GCDM is all about maintaining data integrity and quality, which is absolutely paramount when you're dealing with, potentially life-saving treatments.
Absolutely. So with that solid foundation in mind, we're kind of taking a leap today into how AI is really shaking things up,
Okay.
particularly when it comes to matching patients with the right clinical trials.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're diving into two new research papers that are exploring the potential of large language models, or LMs as they're called.
It's a really exciting area because one of the biggest bottlenecks in medical research is finding the right patients for trials.
Yeah.
Traditional methods can be extremely time-consuming.
Yeah, it's like searching for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get into it. The first paper, Matching Patients to Clinical Trials with Large Language Models, introduces this system called trialGPT,
Okay.
which seems to be turning heads.
Yeah, what's impressive about trialGPT is that it takes this really complex problem and breaks it down into 3 manageable steps.
Okay. All right, I'm all ears. Walk me through it.
So first, you have trialGPT retrieval. It's essentially like a supercharged search engine for clinical trials.
Okay.
Imagine feeding it a patient's medical data, and it sifts through this massive database,
Wow.
using the LLM to generate keywords and pinpoint potentially relevant trials.
So it's doing the heavy lifting of narrowing down the options.
Right, but it's not just about finding any trial, it's about finding the right one.
Right.
And that's where trialGPT matching comes in.
Huh.
This part dives deeper,
Okay.
analyzing each trial's specific criteria against the patient's medical history to assess their eligibility.
So it sounds incredibly thorough.
It is.
Is this where the LLM is really flexing its muscles?
Absolutely. It's making these complex decisions based on a huge amount of data.
Right.
What makes it even more remarkable is that it can explain its reasoning,
Okay.
which allows for transparency and builds trust, which is essential in healthcare.
Yeah. No more black box AI. That's reassuring.
Exactly. Clinicians can see how the system arrived at its conclusions.
Okay.
And then the final piece of the puzzle is trialGPT ranking,
Okay.
which scores these candidate trials based on their suitability for the patient.
Essentially creating a prioritized list for clinicians to consider.
Yes, which can save a phenomenal amount of time and effort.
I'm already seeing the potential here, but what kind of results did they actually achieve?
Well, hold on to your hat because the findings are pretty impressive.
Okay.
trialGPT retrieval was able to identify 90% of the relevant trials.
Wow.
And get this, it did it using just a tiny fraction of the initial database.
Wow. That's a significant reduction. It must make the entire process much more efficient.
It does. And the accuracy,
Yeah.
trialGPT matching reached 87.3% accuracy in determining if a patient was eligible for a trial.
Wait, isn't that about the same as a human expert?
You got it.
That's incredible.
And perhaps most importantly, they found that trialGPT significantly reduced the time clinicians spent screening patients for trials by almost 43%.
Okay. That is a game changer.
Yeah,
Think about how much faster research could move if we could streamline that process.
exactly. And that brings us to the second paper, Learning to Match Patients to Clinical Trials using Large Language Models, which tackles the challenge from a slightly different angle.
Okay.
Instead of a 3-part system, this paper focuses on how to best use LLMs within an information retrieval pipeline.
So optimizing the way the system understands and ranks the relevance of different trials.
Precisely. And they explored a variety of techniques to make that happen,
Okay.
including using LLMs to help formulate search queries and filter results.
Interesting.
But one of their most interesting findings was about how they used LLMs to re-rank the list of potentially relevant clinical trials.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They compared 2 different approaches. Using a fine-tuned LLM, which was specifically trained for this clinical trial matching task, versus using a zero-shot LLM.
So a specialist versus a generalist. I'm guessing that the specialist came out on top.
Well, both actually performed quite well, but the fine-tuned LLM was significantly better at identifying those truly suitable trials,
Okay.
especially when it came to accurately identifying trials the patient was actually eligible for.
That makes sense. The more specialized knowledge you have, the better your decisions.
Yeah.
But I imagine there must be a downside to this fine-tuned approach.
There is a trade-off. As you might expect, using a fine-tuned LLM requires much more computational power, making it more expensive to run.
So it's a balancing act between accuracy and efficiency.
Exactly. But even with that caveat, Both of these papers highlight the incredible potential of LLMs in transforming patient recruitment.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a major shift in how we conduct medical research.
It certainly feels that way. These LLMs could really help us unlock a future where clinical trials are faster, more efficient, and ultimately more successful in bringing new treatments to those who need them most.
It's mind-blowing to think that we could be on the verge of such a dramatic shift in medical research, all thanks to these LLMs. But I'm curious, what were some of the other interesting takeaways from that second paper?
Well, what really stood out to me was how they explored different strategies for incorporating LLMs into this information retrieval pipeline. They didn't just limit themselves to re-ranking the trials.
So they were experimenting with different ways to utilize the LLM strengths.
Exactly. They explored using LLMs for refining the search queries themselves,
Okay.
making them more precise based on the patient's data. They even used LLMs to help filter the initial results, weeding out trials that were clearly irrelevant.
So it's like having multiple AI assistants working behind the scenes to streamline the entire process.
That's a great analogy. And they didn't just throw any old LLM at the problem. They were quite strategic about which models they used and how they used them.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, they utilized both pre-trained LLMs like GPT 3.5, which are these massive models trained on tons of data,
Right.
but they also experimented with fine-tuning those models.
Right.
Remember how we talked about fine-tuning for the re-ranking tasks?
Right, where they train the LLM specifically on clinical trial data?
Yes, and they found that fine-tuning even for these other tasks often led to significant improvements in performance.
Interesting.
But they also incorporated some really cutting-edge techniques like chain-of-thought prompting.
That rings a bell. Didn't we touch on that in our deep dive on prompt engineering?
We did. Chain-of-thought prompting is this fascinating technique where you essentially guide the LLM to think step by step,
Okay.
breaking down complex reasoning into smaller, more manageable chunks. And it seems to be particularly effective in tasks that require logical thinking, like evaluating eligibility criteria for clinical trials.
So it's not just about feeding the LLM data, it's about teaching it how to think about that data.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is that they didn't just focus on the technical aspects, they also provided a really insightful analysis of the trade-offs between different methods.
Ah, so they were thinking about the practical implications as well. I imagine that's crucial if you want to see this technology actually adopted in the real world.
Absolutely. They found, for instance, that while zero-shot LLMs can be surprisingly effective for certain tasks,
Right.
they often can't match the performance of a fine-tuned LLM, especially when it comes to accuracy and those crucial eligibility decisions. But as we discussed, that fine-tuning comes at a cost in terms of computational resources.
It's always a balancing act, isn't it? Try and find the sweet spot between performance cost and accessibility.
That's the challenge with any emerging technology, and AI is no exception. But what I find so encouraging about these papers is that researchers are tackling these challenges head on. They're not just building cool systems, they're thinking critically about how to make them practical, reliable, and accessible for the people who need them most.
That's what makes this research so exciting. It's not just theoretical, it has the potential to truly impact people's lives.
And I think that's what drives so many researchers in this field. The possibility of using AI to improve healthcare, to speed up the development of new treatments, and ultimately to help people live longer, healthier lives.
Well said. It sounds like both of these papers are pushing the boundaries of what's possible with LLMs in healthcare.
They are, and they're giving us a glimpse into a future where matching patients to clinical trials is no longer a slow, laborious process,
Right.
but a streamlined, efficient, and incredibly precise endeavor.
I'm curious, based on everything we've unpacked today, what are some of the key areas where you see future research focusing on?
That's a great question. One area that's absolutely critical is improving the efficiency of these LLM-based systems. Right now, many of them are computationally expensive,
Yeah.
which limits their accessibility.
So making those LLMs leaner and meaner?
Precisely. And researchers are exploring a variety of techniques to achieve this. One promising avenue is knowledge distillation, where you essentially train a smaller, more efficient model to mimic the performance of a larger, more complex LLM. It's like creating a mini-me version that's just as smart, but much faster and cheaper to run.
It's fascinating how researchers are finding ways to optimize these complex models.
And another crucial area for future research is addressing the black box problem. Even though some LLMs can provide explanations for their decisions, they're often still quite opaque. We need to develop methods to make these AI systems even more transparent so that clinicians can fully understand how they're working and trust their recommendations.
It sounds like transparency is key, especially in a field as sensitive as healthcare.
It is. And ultimately, I think one of the most exciting areas of future research is exploring how these LLMs can move beyond simple matching and start to help design even better clinical trials.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Imagine a future where AI can not only match patients to existing trials, but can actually help design personalized trials tailored to an individual's unique genetic profile, medical history, and lifestyle.
Wow, that would be a true game changer. We'd
Yeah.
be moving from a world of one-size-fits-all trials to a world of truly personalized medicine.
Exactly. And I think that's the ultimate goal, to use AI to develop treatments that are not just effective, but effective for each individual patient. It's a lofty goal, but I believe it's within our reach.
It's incredible to think that AI could help us move towards that level of personalized medicine. Designing trials that are truly tailored to the individual.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with the future,
Right.
let's kind of bring it back to the present.
Yeah.
And thinking back to our discussion about GCDM, those good clinical data management practices,
Yeah.
I'm wondering how it all ties into this AI revolution we're talking about.
That's a really good point. It's easy to forget about the fundamentals when you're talking about these really advanced technologies.
It seems so fundamental back then, almost like we were setting the stage. But is there a direct link between GCDM and the success of these LLM-powered systems?
Absolutely. GCDM and these advanced LLMs, they really go hand in hand.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this connection.
Well, remember that GCDM is all about ensuring the reliability and integrity of data collected during clinical trials. It sets the standards for everything from how data is collected and stored to how it's analyzed and reported.
Right, it's like creating a rock-solid foundation for the whole clinical trial process.
Exactly. And that foundation is absolutely essential for these LLMs to work effectively. You see, LLMs are incredibly powerful tools,
Right.
but they're only as good as the data they're trained on. If you feed an LLM garbage data,
Yeah.
you're going to get garbage results.
So GCDM is like laying the groundwork, ensuring that the data used to train these LLMs is accurate, consistent, and trustworthy.
That's a perfect analogy. High quality data is like the fuel that powers these AI engines.
Yeah.
Without it, they can't reach their full potential.
It's like building a skyscraper. You need a strong foundation to support all those amazing features you're going to add on top.
Precisely. And that's why GCDM is so crucial in this era of AI-driven healthcare. It's not just about following rules, it's about creating an environment where AI can truly thrive.
So it's a symbiotic relationship. GCDM ensures data quality, which empowers LLMs to make accurate decisions, ultimately leading to better outcomes for patients.
Exactly. It's a beautiful synergy between human expertise and cutting-edge technology.
It feels like we've covered a lot of ground today, from the meticulous details of GCDM to the mind-blowing potential of LLMs. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and it really underscores the fact that we're living in an era of incredible advancements in healthcare. It's a time of both great promise and great responsibility as we navigate the integration of AI into such a critical field.
I'm definitely walking away with a sense of awe at the power of these technologies and optimism about the positive impact they can have.
I share that sentiment. The future of healthcare is bright, and I'm eager to see how these advancements unfold and what new discoveries await us.
Well, before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final question for you and for our listeners.
Okay.
Given the rapid advancements we've discussed today, how do you envision the future of patient trial matching, and what broader implications do you see for personalized medicine?
That's the question that keeps me up at night, in a good way, of course.
I bet that's a big one.
It is, but here's what I find most intriguing. I believe that as LLMs continue to evolve, we'll move beyond simply matching patients to existing trials. We'll enter a realm where AI can actually help design personalized clinical trials tailored to an individual's unique genetic profile and medical history.
Wow, that's taking personalized medicine to a whole new level.
It is. Imagine a future where clinical trials are no longer one size fits all, but truly tailored to the individual. It's a future where we can potentially unlock treatments and cures that were once unimaginable.
That's an incredibly exciting thought. And it all starts with ensuring our data is accurate, reliable, and ready to fuel these incredible AI-powered advancements.
Absolutely. That's where GCDM comes in, providing the foundation for this AI revolution in healthcare.
Well, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep